Have you ever wondered why some men come back even after moments of deep intimacy that felt like the end? Why do they return just when you thought they were gone for good? It's as if something invisible pulls them back, something they can't fully explain. But what if I told you that the reason has nothing to do with sweet words, physical performance, or even emotional persuasion? Here on Beyond the Realm, we explore the truths that lie beneath the surface. And today, we're diving into a profound psychological insight that the great Carl Jung believed. The real magnet that draws a man back lies not in what you do outwardly, but in how you hold your essence after intimacy. Jung emphasized that the unconscious realm, the place most of us ignore, is where real connection happens. And if you know how to navigate it, you hold a power few truly understand. Intimacy, in Jung's understanding, is never just physical. It's a soul-level exchange, a moment when your unconscious minds communicate in ways the conscious can't grasp. Every look, every silence, every breath taken together is filled with symbols and deeper meaning. And after such a moment, the energy you carry becomes crucial. If you spiral into anxiety, clinging for control, or needing validation, the other person feels it, maybe not consciously, but their inner psyche does. That's when they start pulling away. Not because of something you said, but because of what they sense. But if instead you turn inward, embracing your emotions with gentleness, honoring your own worth, you send a different message, one that is rooted in power, not desperation. When you choose to hold space for yourself instead of rushing to hold space for someone else, something extraordinary shifts. You become a mirror, clear, grounded, and full of dignity. Carl Jung believed this is what makes a connection unforgettable. In this mirror, the other person sees not just you, but pieces of themselves they've long buried. And for men who have been conditioned to suppress emotion since childhood, this reflection is rare and magnetic. Without even knowing why, they feel the need to return, not to you as a person, but to the part of themselves that only awakens when they are around you. Carl Jung called it the process of individuation, becoming who you truly are. And no journey of individuation is complete without understanding how you relate to others intimately. So ask yourself this: after sharing a moment with someone, do you lose yourself in hopes they'll validate you? Do you wait by your phone, needing their response to feel whole? If so, you're not just giving them your attention, you're giving away your personal power. But when you choose instead to stay grounded in silence, not as punishment, but as a loving return to your inner self, you tell the world something rare and deeply powerful. I am already whole. And that energy? That's what he feels long after the moment has passed. Many fear being alone after connection, but your ability to be in solitude with grace is what sets you apart. Carl Jung often pointed out that people project what they lack onto others. Men, in particular, often seek emotional nurturing in women because they've been taught to suppress their inner feminine. So when you don't beg for attention or affirmation after intimacy, when you stay calm, soft-hearted, and whole, you awaken something ancient and essential in him. He may not know what it is. He may not even be ready for it, but he will feel it. Your presence becomes a safe space, a mirror to the part of himself that feels emotions, intuitions, dreams, and that memory becomes unforgettable. What happens when you don't chase? When he leaves after a close moment, and instead of texting or calling, you simply remain still. What kind of message does that send? It may seem like silence, but to a man's unconscious, it's something entirely different. Carl Jung described this as facing the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny or avoid. When you don't reach out in desperation, your quiet becomes a mirror. A presence so dignified it challenges him more than 1,000 words ever could. He might begin to feel an aching emptiness. Not because you're gone, but because he's finally facing his own emotional shadow through the silence you've left behind. And in that stillness, he doesn't just remember you, he remembers who he was when he was with you. You might wonder, why does he come back? And the answer is deeper than you think. It's not about physical attraction. It's not even about the words you once shared. Carl Jung taught that we don't fall in love with people. We fall in love with how we feel when we're near them. So when a man remembers you, it's the elevated state of being you triggered within him that he craves. You awakened a part of his soul he didn't know existed. And that awakening only happens when you position yourself after intimacy with quiet self-respect. No begging, no guilt, just the wholeness of a woman rooted in her essence. That is what he remembers. That is what he seeks to feel again. Imagine this. He disappears after a meaningful moment. No call, no message, just silence. In that painful space, most people panic. They reread messages, overanalyze interactions, ask friends for answers, and spiral into insecurity. But you, what if you did the opposite? What if you turned inward, took a breath and said, "I trust myself"? Jung believed that healing begins when we stop running and start facing our fears, our anxiety, our solitude. When you sit with your discomfort instead of fleeing from it, you grow. You become an emotional anchor, not only for yourself but unconsciously for him as well. Because very few people know how to stand still in a storm. And when they meet someone who can, they feel it deeply. Many think love is about needing someone. But true connection, the kind that leaves a mark, is built when you don't need someone to complete you, when you are already complete. Carl Jung never supported emotional games or manipulation. He taught that real transformation only happens through deep honesty. So this is not about pretending to be detached. It's about genuinely becoming someone who holds herself in reverence. When you do that, your presence says, "I belong fully to myself." That's not arrogance. That's sacred strength. And when a man feels that energy, it doesn't just pull him toward you. It challenges him to become more whole himself. You might not realize it, but when you walk away in peace, when you nurture your body and soul after intimacy instead of clinging to his presence, you send an unspoken invitation, not to come back for your attention, but to rise into his own maturity. Carl Jung believed that deep relationships aren't meant to make us comfortable. They're meant to awaken us. And when a man meets a woman who doesn't try to manipulate or rescue him, but simply lives her truth, he's invited into something rare: self-evolution. You become more than a lover. You become a spiritual mirror, a call to become better. And even without a single word spoken, he feels that call. So what happens when you say nothing, when you let the time pass, when you resist the urge to explain, fix, or chase? Carl Jung once said that time is sacred, that growth requires silence, contemplation, and yes, even pain. He must feel the ache of your absence in order to value your presence. If you interrupt that process with desperate messages, you short-circuit the magic of awakening. But when you let time do its work, when you allow the stillness to mature him, your silence becomes the very soil in which your connection grows roots. Not through pressure, but through truth. Let's be clear, not every man will return. And that's not a failure. Carl Jung taught that every relationship is a mirror. And even when that mirror shatters, what you learn from the reflection is yours to keep. What parts of you were illuminated? What wounds came to the surface? What shadow was revealed? These aren't things you lose when he leaves. These are gifts you keep. Because the greatest treasure isn't whether someone comes back, it's who you become in their absence. That's the real growth. That's your power. If he returns, and many do, it won't be because you convinced him. It'll be because you transformed. He will feel your energy, your emotional maturity, your rootedness, and he'll be drawn not to your image, but to your essence. Because while others drain with demands, you offered peace. While others begged for love, you became love. This is the type of feminine presence Carl Jung described as alchemical. One that doesn't seduce with charm, but with authenticity. One that invites without trapping. One that heals just by being. So, what should you do after intimacy? Return to yourself. Return with love, with patience, with care. Nurture your rituals. Move in silence. Observe your feelings without judgment, and truly know, that your essence is enough. This isn't about control, it's about freedom. It's about becoming so whole that if someone comes back, it's not to fill a void, but to stand beside you in truth. Carl Jung believed that kindred souls recognize one another, and when they're truly ready, they find each other again, not through force, but through resonance. So breathe deeply now. Ask yourself gently, how many times have I abandoned myself to keep someone close? And now, imagine a life where you never have to do that again. That's what we honor here on Beyond the Realm, the journey back to your own sacred self. Because no matter who stays, who leaves, or who returns, the most important reunion is always the one you have with your own soul.